Howdy, fellow vine trippers. I wanted to take just a moment before the show starts to let you know about a great website called Texas Wine Lover. They can be found at txwinelover.com. And they have a comprehensive website that can become your go-to site for information on Texas wines, winemakers, and the wineries that can be found in this state. They even have a phone app that you can download, and that will help you plan your route to create your own wine trip. So make sure and check them out at txwinelover.com. Welcome to Texas Under Vine, an exploratory podcast to scout out the best that Texas wine country has to offer. I'm your wine guide, Scott, and I'm here to lead you on an auditory expedition to the vineyards and wineries across the great Lone Star State. Each episode will cover a different vineyard, winery, or wine-related business operating in Texas. You'll hear interviews, descriptions, and details about each location that will excite you to visit and experience them for yourself. Ready to plan a wine tour? Use these episodes to choose the most interesting spots for you and your friends to check out. Most of all, enjoy hearing about the rapidly growing wine industry in the state and what makes our wines and wineries the best. Hello, Vine Trippers. Here we are at episode 7 for Texas Under Vine. Today we're going on a safari. Well, not a real safari, but a fun expedition to a new winery called Rhinory in Fredericksburg. It's a fun play on words because they are a rhino conservatory as well as a winery. So they were able to put those words together to get the fun name of Rhinory there in Fredericksburg. So first off, let's talk a little bit about the winery itself. Can we talk about the rhino in the room? Well, he's not actually in the room, but it's definitely no surprise when you drive up to the Rhinory and you see this majestic statue of a rhino right outside the gates when you pull in, and you pull down this country road back down to where the tasting room is, and you see the pen where they keep the rhino. They have a barn right there on the side where the rhino keepers take care of the rhino and all of that. It's definitely a really cool and different type of experience than what you might get at a typical winery for sure. They keep a South African theme to the winery itself. You'll see that inside in the decorations, the wines that they offer, all kinds of things, even some of the snacks. You'll hear about that in the interview. So they actually have wine from 4 different wineries in South Africa, as well as their own 100% Texas wines that they make. It's a really cool way to taste and compare some similar varietal wines from 2 different countries side by side. And you get to taste, again, the Texas wines as well as the South African versions of those. There's rhino experiences to meet the rhino, and you'll learn in the interview his name. I'm going to keep that for Craig to be able to tell you. But you get to meet the rhino. If you are an 8 or 12 bottle club members, they have experiences to go out and pet the rhino and get to know him. Apparently, he's a very friendly rhino that really likes people and comes up to interact with people through the fence as they see him and talk to him and take a look at him. And it's an incredibly great cause to help give back to rhino conservation. So a lot of what they do as part of this winery is not just to make great wines, but to actually give back to help with the conservation of a severely endangered poached animal. And they're doing it themselves as well as giving money to organizations to help with that. So Craig Stevens, one of the owners of Rhinory, sat down to talk to me a bit about their location, their wines, and that really cool rhino that they have living on their ranch. Okay, so I'm here with Greg Stevens at the Rhinory. So first off, I'm going to do a little personal question. So just tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you into the wine industry?
I've just always been into wine. My wife and I, from the beginning of our relationship, we traveled the world going to wineries. We've been all over Europe, South America, Africa, you name it, all over the U.S. We've just always been into wine. I lived in San Francisco for 3 years and went up to Napa and Sonoma quite a bit. And then a different part of my life than with my wife, we were living in Palo Alto and went up to Napa and Sonoma quite a bit as well. We've got a lot of friends that live near Portland, so would always go to Willamette Valley. And, just wine has always been part of our relationship, our story.
Well-traveled and well-seasoned, sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then tell me a little bit about this location. What's the history? What made you decide to start this? I see you got the African, kind of South African theme there. So tell me a little bit about your decision to create this place and kind of the history of all that.
Yeah, so it's kind of a long story, but my in-laws live about 10 minutes away. And, we would always just come out here visiting her family. And of course, us being into wine, we'd always go to the wineries. It's Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatnot. And, we'd visit the wineries. And so really had an appreciation for this area, for the wineries in this area, the wine that people are doing in this area. And have just really enjoyed being out here. Combine that with our very deep interest in rhino conservation. So rhino conservation, that area essentially was 6 years ago. My wife and I were in South Africa, and we were on safari, and a couple of rhinos were poached. And so, we realized that poaching is not going to stop in South Africa or in Africa in general. And what can we do to help rhino conservation back here in the United States? So I kicked around a couple ideas about having a rhino farm, things like that. That is very, very, very expensive and doesn't generate any revenue. So really, it was taking our deep interest in rhino conservation and our interest in wine and combining it into one. So to create a Rhinory where, we can have great Texas wine, great South African wine, have a great experience for people that come here. They get to, have great wine, support conservation, see Blake. We do rhino experiences where they get to meet Blake. So, for us, it's really the best of both worlds. It's helping conservation by education and then also contributing funds back to International Rhino Foundation and other conservation efforts and having a great experience for people. So that's kind of how it came to be. And really this location, like I said, my in-laws are about 10 minutes down the road, and they actually knew the owner of this place. My mother-in-law went to school with one of the owners. And so getting this land, purchasing this land was kind of a local to local sale, I guess you'd say. So, I wasn't some outsider coming from who knows where buying it. It was very much a local thing. So my wife and her family are very proud of their roots here. And, the 93-year-old grandmother still lives down the street and still has her goats and chickens. And so having a spot here to us, it's just being part of the family.
Tell me about Blake. So what kind of rhino is Blake?
Blake is a southern white rhino, and he is 4 years old. He was born August 14th, and he's about 4,000 pounds. So yeah, he's very, very sweet. Southern white rhinos are typically very gentle, loving creatures. A lot of people think rhinos are aggressive, and Blake is not aggressive at all. He's a big puppy dog. So he's come to us from Fossil Rim. He was born in Texas, so he's a Texas rhino. He's a pretty big boy. Both his mom and dad were pretty big rhinos, so he's going to end up being on the larger side for rhinos. But yeah, he was born at Fossil Rim, and he needed a new home. He was getting kicked out of the herd. He right around age 3 or 4 in the wild, the mothers essentially tell their offspring to go find your way in the world, and they do that also in captivity. So for him, he needed to find a new home. They were going to bring another male in to have his mother breed again, and you can't have Blake sitting around because these rhinos would clash. And so for us, it was a perfect opportunity to get a great rhino. A perfect opportunity to help the breeding programs here in the United States by actually taking a rhino from a different location here so his mother could breed again. So it's really, having him here is actually helping rhino conservation elsewhere. So eventually Blake will breed and we will have a breeding program here. We're hoping to do that in a couple years. We have to, change our facilities a little bit, have to do a new barn. We're calling it a breeding barn, essentially, for the ladies, because our current facility, we're just not set up to have baby rhinos. So not only are we helping rhino conservation by doing a breeding program here eventually, but also by taking Blake, helping other institutions do their conservation work.
So tell me the wines that you offer here. So I see you've got some South African wines, but you also have Texas wines, you said. Do you import those South African wines?
Yep. Yeah. So we have we have 4 winemakers that we work with in South Africa. It's David Finlayson, Richard Kershaw, Kathy Marshall, and then we work with another winery down there. And we bring those in that they are the absolute best of the best wines in South Africa. Richard Kershaw is a master of wine. There's about 300, 400 master of wines in the world, and he's one of them. And he is absolutely spectacular winemaker. So we've worked with him on a couple wines. We have a Chardonnay from him right now, and we are soon to be bringing in a Sauvignon Blanc blend. For the other wines, David Finlayson is a absolute master at Cabernet Sauvignon, and we have a couple cabs that he's made for us. And Kathy Marshall is very, very, very good at Pinot Noir, so that's her specialty, and we have Pinot Noir from her. So all of our, I guess you'd say, more everyday wines, they come from another winery down in South Africa. But those are typically like your Pinotages. Pinotage being a South African, very specifically South African varietal, that's their specialty. Also Chenin Blanc, which is another South African specialty. We have a Chardonnay and a few other things from South Africa, just sort of to round out the profile. So we view it as sort of doing what we bring stuff in that Texas doesn't do. So a very good example is the Pinotage. Obviously, there's hardly any Pinotage in the United States, so we have that. But also Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. So Texas typically does not do Pinot Noir or Chardonnay very well. There are definitely some exceptions, but typically it doesn't really grow very well here in Texas. And so we fill in those gaps with the South African varietals. And as far as our Texas wines, we have our winemaker, Michael McClendon. We've worked with him for several years, building our Texas wine program. So when you go in the tasting room, there's, if it says Texas on it, it's 100% Texas. It's 100% Texas grapes grown, made. It's 100% Texas. So in South Africa, if it says South Africa, it's from South Africa, made there, bottled there, and then brought over. So using our relationships with those winemakers. But if it says Texas, it's 100% Texas.
Yeah, I was going to ask about a Pinotage. I had a friend of mine who gave me a Pinotage from South Africa, and I really liked it. It was really good.
Yeah, Pinotage is tough. Pinotage is a varietal that if it's made well, if it's good, it's really good.
Yeah.
And if it's not, well,
it's hard.
It's maybe not the best.
I gotcha.
So a lot of winemakers sort of struggle with Pinotage to make a very good Pinotage, but our Pinotage won a platinum medal at Texom, and so it is that's one step above gold. We were pretty pumped about that. But our Pinotage is absolutely excellent.
Well, that's great, and it gives people a chance to try something that's hard to find here.
Yeah, yeah, and we only bring in absolutely spectacular Pinotage. So if you come in and you have a Pinotage here, it's going to be good.
The Texas wines that you do you process those here? Does Michael process those here on site?
No. He at a different location. Yeah, eventually we will have production on site, but that's in the future, to be determined when in the future. But for right now, the grapes come from the High Plains and are processed by Michael at his facility.
What are your favorite wines that you sell, that you provide?
There's our Chardonnay, that the ones that we have here on site. The Chardonnay that we have from Richard Kershaw is ridiculous. It's so good. It is a Chardonnay that its balance is absolutely perfect. It's not too buttery. It's not too oaky. It's this beautiful, beautiful wine, start to finish. I could drink that all day, every day. It's just an amazing wine. I'm a big fan of Sauvignon Blanc, and our Sauvignon Blanc won the judges selection at Texom International Wine Awards, and so sort of more as of a everyday type wine. I go to that. That's just a spectacular Sauvignon Blanc. Michael McClendon made this blend. It's called the Horn. It's the Horn blend. It's 58% Malbec, 22% Tempranillo, 10% Dolcetto, and 10% Tannat. That blend it's our best-selling red wine. It's wonderful. Everything about it is great. It's perfect oak on it. I'm a big Malbec fan, and so having the 58% Malbec probably hits my palate pretty well. But we sell a ton of it, and people typically when they come in, they absolutely love that. So those are kind of my three go-to wines that we have. And really, I don't want to call it fourth place, but the Sangiovese that we have that Michael made, he absolutely knocked it out of the park with the Sangiovese. So unfortunately, I now have Sangiovese from other places, and I'm almost always let down, because I have my bar now, and that Sangiovese, it's very tough for other wineries to hit that bar.
Well, this may be some of the same ones. You may have kind of already answered the question, but now I was going to turn it around from a customer's perspective and more, I guess, from a strict sales type of perspective. What would you say are some of your customers' most favorite wines? What's the most requested? What do you see kind of flying off the shelves?
Yeah, so we have a South African Chenin Blanc. We have a Texas Chenin Blanc and a South African Chenin Blanc. And we typically do those side by side. So people can decide for themselves, what they like better. So on but they're made differently. So it's still Chenin Blanc. It's still the same grape. Obviously, one's made on the opposite side of the world, and one's made just down the road. But the process is also different. One is stainless steel. One is oak. The winemakers are obviously different. But it's just two very, very different wines. And I would say between those two wines, it's about 60% people like the South African one, 40% the Texas one. And after they try those, they typically go home with one of the two. So our best selling wine is our South African Chenin Blanc, and one of our people here who pours for us says it's like drinking a dream is the South African Chenin Blanc, and I'd say that is something that people, if they come in, they cannot miss that. But when they do have that Chenin Blanc, make sure you side by side it with the Texas Chenin, because I personally think they're equivalent. Or not. I mean, they're completely different wines, but they're equally good. And so we do sell a lot of the Texas Chenin Blanc, but as far as the thing that people walk out the door with consistently, it's that South African Chenin Blanc.
Gotcha. So if a listener wanted to come in, they've never been here before, and they're thinking, I want to go in and I want to do a tasting there. Can you tell me a little bit about what your tasting options are, pricing, different varietals, or what all can they expect if they wanted to do a tasting?
Sure, no problem. We have 3 different tastings. So we have a standard tasting, a reserve tasting, and a Karis tasting. Karis is our upper end collection. 4 of the 5 of those wines won judges selection at Texom International Wine Awards, which is essentially first place. So the pricing for a standard is $25, a reserve is $35, and the Karis is $60. You get 5 pours of different wines for each of those tastings. I typically do the reserve just because up and down the reserve, it's absolutely spectacular wines. The Karis wines are just ridiculously good. Those are sort of special occasion wines. So we have a bubbly. It's an MCC. It's the same process as champagne. So and that also won judges selection at Texom. That's I think it's 63% Chardonnay, 37% Pinot Noir, and but so it kind of depends. If you want to go high end, it's the Karis, and that's the $60 one, worth every penny. At the standard one, you have a Blanc du Bois, which is a very traditional Texas varietal, grows really well in Texas. You've got, of course, the Texas Chenin Blanc. You've got an S&V, which is Shiraz, Merlot, Viognier. You have a Shiraz, and then Texas Cabernet. And so, there's great wines. There's gold medal winning wines on every single menu. So the Shiraz that's on the standard tasting won a gold medal at the Houston Rodeo. So there's a lot of really, really good wines on every single menu. But there's 3 choices, 25, 35, 60. Kind of all depends on your own personal taste. You can take a look at the menu when you come in and see what varietals are on there and go from there.
So do you require reservations or walk-ins or?
Yeah, so on weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we really prefer that people make reservations. We do accept walk-ins on those days. We are happy to do tastings if we have the available space. So if we don't have the available space, we do have glass and bottle service. So we never turn anybody away. You can come in, have a glass, grab a bottle, hang out in the Grove, which is a really beautiful area with picnic tables under some trees. You can hang out and check out Blake if you're unable to do a tasting. But we do really prefer people make reservations actually any day, but especially on weekends. Friday, Saturday, Sunday is, if you have a reservation, we can guarantee you a tasting. If you don't, we can probably get you in, but there's it kind of depends on how busy we are.
I noticed outside it's kind of a cold, rainy, yucky day today. So I'm sure Blake is probably huddling for warmth somewhere and saying, well, this isn't like Africa. But what's the best time to go see Blake if you wanted to come out here? Because I think that's one of the big attractions to come here, besides the great wine, is, I could see a rhino. You don't get to see that very often. So what's the best conditions or the best opportunities to be able to see Blake when they come out?
Yeah, so Blake goes inside pretty much at low 40s. We send him inside. It's not his favorite temperature. So anything above, mid 40s, I'd say anything above 45 degrees, he will be outside. Okay. And he'll be outside all day long. We occasionally bring him in if it's raining or thunderstorm, just for his own safety. But typically he actually really loves the rain. So if it's, if it's a nice day, if it's 80 degrees and it's raining, he's probably still going to be outside. But anything above 45 degrees, he's out there roaming around, and he is a very, very lovable rhino. You have to come and you have to see it. He loves people. He doesn't hide. We have, I think it's 2.25 acres of land for him to roam around on. And he goes where the people are. He doesn't choose to be out, far, far away from the people. He chooses to be wherever you are. So if we have, say, 3 people outside, there's a huge % chance that he's sitting right next to those 3 people. It's amazing. He doesn't hide. He doesn't, wander off. He's hey, what's going on? Can I be part of the show? Oh, you want to take pictures of me? Cool. I'm totally down with that. So he really really loves people. So I'd say any time is a great time to come out and check him out. We do allow kids on site. So we have animal crackers and juice boxes for kids. So while the parents are getting their juice, the kids can get theirs.
So he's more like a dog than a cat that way, right? He likes
yeah.
He's not like, stay away from me.
No, not at all. He's actually the opposite. He's like, hey, I wish there wasn't a fence here so you could come pet me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he loves rubbies and loves people.
And you mentioned family friendly, kids can come. You got all that stuff for them, food. What about pets allowed? I think I saw a sign out front.
Yeah. So we do not allow pets. I love pets. I've got a dog. I've got a couple cats and a bunny, and I love pets. But our Rhino does not love pets. So I originally was going to have my dog be the winery dog, and that was very quickly squashed when when Blake was not very excited to see a dog. So even though we are animal lovers, we cannot have pets on site.
And that makes total sense. What are your operating hours?
So we are open 11 to 5:30 every single day. So the only times we are closed are major holidays. So we'll be closed for Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, things like that. But for the most part, we're open 7 days a week from 11 to 5:30.
And then are there any kind of food options for people to come, or just the wine, or what do you got?
Sure. So we actually have biltong. So biltong is South African jerky. And we work with a place in Austin. It's called Ranger Biltong. They donate a portion of their proceeds to the International Rhino Foundation. And so when you're eating the South African biltong here, you're also supporting rhino conservation. So for us, having that kind of South African feel with the rhino, having a few South African options for food. We have biltong, and I'm going to butcher the other name. It's Dwars. It's this very South African. It's like a snap stick. It's like a Slim Jim. Yeah, so it's their version of Slim Jim. So we've got those options for food. Eventually, we will have charcuterie. We're working on that right now, but that'll probably be coming in the next 3-4 months.
Group sizes. So is there a maximum group size if somebody wants to bring like a big bus pulls into the parking lot or things like that? Is there numbers that you can typically handle or that you like or don't like?
Sure. So with far enough advance notice, we can accommodate pretty much anything. If a big bus pulled in right now, that might be a problem. But with enough warning or enough advance notice, we can pretty much accommodate anything. We do have, like I said, the Grove area, which is under the trees. We have about 30 picnic tables that people can go. So we can accommodate quite a few people out in the Grove. Our tasting room is not that large. If it's going to be something indoors and a big bus were to pull in, please make it a Monday or Tuesday because our tasting room isn't huge, and we would struggle to accommodate large parties without advance notice. In our tasting room, but yeah, we have plenty of space for groups, and people can definitely call us and schedule something, and we'll definitely be able to take care of you.
Well, and that kind of leads me into my next question. Is there a busy, slow season? What's the best time to visit if somebody wanted to come out? What would, in your opinion, would you say is the best time for somebody to come out?
Best time to visit is, just about any time. Any time that the weather is decent is a great time. I personally, anything above 60 degrees when you can be outside and, maybe you have a light jacket is wonderful. So I don't think there's really a good or bad season. If it's below 60 or in the 50s, maybe you want to be inside. We have space for about 45 people inside. But for the most part, if you're good being outside, there's not a bad time to come.
So do you do kind of special events or parties or things like that?
Sure. So we do. We are willing to work with anybody for just about any sort of special event. Obviously, need advance notice for things like that. But we can accommodate pretty much anything. As far as catering for, say, a special event, we can try to coordinate that. They can coordinate it, but we are definitely able to do special events at this facility.
Tell me about your wine club. Do you have one? And if so, what are the details?
Sure. So it's called Winos for Rhinos. And we have, it's a 4, 8, or 12 bottle selections. We ship 4 times a year. And we, of course, if you don't want to ship and you want to pick up, we have pickup parties. So 4 times a year. The last pickup party, we had our winemaker here, Michael McClendon, and we had a South African food truck. So we try to provide food for people and pretty much have a party. It's not a stuffy party. I know it sounds kind of weird, but having a rhino loitering around, we're not stuffy people. We're here to have a good time and drink great wine. So, in our first pickup party, we had a couple board members from the International Rhino Foundation come. And we also had catering at that. It was Egyptian barbecue. So, we try to have a good time and make it worth the while for people to come and pick up the wines. If not, we ship to pretty much any state that is legal to ship to. The big difference, what I try to think of between us and every other winery in their wine club, is that at the 4-bottle membership, you get a 10% discount. 8 bottle, you get 15. 12 bottle, you get a 20% discount. That's, fairly typical for what wineries do. And, almost all wineries have pickup parties. We try to do our pickup parties a little bit better than everybody else's, but, that's personal opinion. But where the real difference comes is between us and other wineries is that at the 8 and 12 bottle membership levels, you actually get an experience with Blake. So we have a special enclosure. You get to go in, you get to pet him. It's about half hour, 45 minutes with our 2 rhino keepers. You get a tour of the barn, go over some safety protocols. Then you go out to our special enclosure. Blake comes up and take pictures. You can rub on him. You can ask whatever questions you want to our rhino keepers. You get to learn a lot more about what we're working on for our conservation efforts here on our property. So it's a really cool experience. If you join the 12 bottle membership, you get 4 of those experiences, or experience for 4 people, and they don't need to be used all at the same time. And at the 8 bottle membership, you get for 2 people. So it can be 1 person coming twice. It can be 2 people. And also, if say you have 4 in your group, and you get the 2 free rhino experiences, but you want to add 2 more people, you get a discount on those 2 other people. So, so I think, we do what everybody else does, but in my opinion, better.
Well, if you mentioned shipping a moment ago, if somebody wasn't able to come here, but they wanted to try your wine and to get your wine, do you do any kind of distribution, or just this online sales, or?
Just online sales.
Okay.
That's correct. So we do not currently distribute. We just don't have enough volume to distribute, especially the Texas wines. Texas wines are expensive and tough to come by. So getting the grapes for those is pretty tough. So, but we do sell online, and when you place an order, it goes directly to shipping and gets to you really, really quickly.
Well, tell me a little bit about your conservation efforts. So do you contribute? I know what you're doing physically with the rhino here and the property and all that, but do you contribute to any funds, or do a portion of the proceeds or things like that?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a relationship with the International Rhino Foundation. And so we currently, in the last year, have given $70,000 to the International Rhino Foundation. So when you come in and you do experiences or merchandise or wine, a portion of that goes to the International Rhino Foundation. So we are very, very proud that in the last year we've given them $70,000. So we have a 5-year commitment to support their conservation efforts, which is international, it's domestic, but also international. Their efforts around the world.
What are your plans for future growth?
Sure. So step 1, we need to build a barn. When Blake is ready ready for the ladies. We need to have a spot for the ladies ladies and hopefully babies to reside. So step one is to build a barn, and it'll be a pretty hefty, big barn. We hope to have as many rhinos as possible on this property. Of course, that means building more fences, rhino fences, and integrating those into the barn. So what you're going to see over the next couple of years is construction on new barn facilities, and then eventually, maybe 2, 3, 4 years down the road, we will build another tasting room. So the tasting room that we have now, like I said, can probably accommodate 45 people. We would like to build a dedicated tasting room that is significantly larger. So during the winter months when it's a little bit cooler, or the summer months when it's really, really hot, people, of course, prefer to be inside. And so, our property is 65 acres, and we can accommodate a lot of people outside. Our inside portion is where we'd like to have the growth. So really, step one is building a barn, and step two is building a second tasting room.
Tell me about Blake's name. How did Blake get his name? Did he have that when you got him, or did y'all name him that, or what's the story there?
Yeah, so Blake was named when he was born at Fossil Rim. I did inquire about name changes. I was more curious than anything. And nope, once a rhino has a name, that's the name. Okay. So now some people call him Balake. I don't know if you're familiar with the skit, but so in my mind, I sometimes call him Balake, but no, he came with that name.
What, in your opinion, is the number one thing that sets the Rhinory apart that would really want to attract people in to come check you guys out?
So I think it's pretty clear. We are much more than a winery. We combine business and, I don't want to say nonprofit, but business and conservation. So, what we try to do here is give somebody a very, very unique experience. So a unique experience with wine. We have our Texas wine and our South African wine, but also an experience with a rhino on site. So very, very friendly puppy dog rhino on site. So we have our rhino keepers coming around. They give talks. On the weekend, they give talks on the hour about rhinos, rhino conservation. So it's educational for the people that come in. They get to see the rhino, hang out with a rhino. They get to drink great wine. They get to learn about conservation, rhinos. And when they buy the wine, they're actually helping rhino conservation worldwide. So for us, it's really, it's a combination of conservation and great wine, and giving somebody a very, very unique experience. And I think what our biggest challenge is right now is that people come in for the rhino and they forget about the great wine. All the awards that we've won, we can have all the medals in the world, and people they want to see Blake, and they want to hear about Blake and hear the story about Blake. And what I really would like people to do is come in and really appreciate how much time and effort we've personally given to having exceptional wine up and down the menu. Absolutely exceptional wine. So don't forget about the wine.
So for those of you that don't know, Craig mentioned a wine called Shiraz in the interview. That's synonymous with a wine varietal you may be more familiar with called Syrah. That particular varietal is called Shiraz in South Africa and in Australia. He also mentioned a wine called Pinotage. This is a very famous wine in South Africa. It was created there back in the 1920s. It's a cross between Pinot Noir and Cinsault. It can actually be really hard to find sometimes here in the U.S., so getting to experience it at Rhinory can be a real treat and a look into a wine from another country that you might not have ever tried before. It was also really fun to be able to compare side by side the Chenin Blanc from South Africa next to the Texas version. It really helps you see how things like terroir, where the grape was grown, and the winemaking process can impact the characteristics of a wine and how its taste comes across. It was a cold day when I was there, so I didn't actually get to see Blake as he was taking warm shelter inside the barn. But it was great to hear about all of the efforts that Rhinory is taking to contribute to rhino conservation. They aren't just donating money to a cause. They put their money where their mouth is and have started their own conservatory for an endangered species. And it was great to hear their plans for furthering that project and adding on even more rhinos and hopefully even baby rhinos in the future. They're definitely off to the right start. And as friendly as Craig says that Blake is, it's a great experience for those with kids to be able to come by, see the rhino while the adults enjoy a glass or two of their own great wines. And if you come on the weekend, every hour you can hear from the rhino keepers about Blake and learn more about rhinos and their conservation. So it's an educational experience as well. With all their plans to grow their rhino operations, I joked with Craig that I bet it looks really interesting on a job search website like Indeed to see a listing for wine tasting room server right next to a listing for rhino keeper from the same company. Check out their website at www.rhinory.com. It's a really pretty website with videos of rhinos in the background as you scroll through the pages. You can learn about their wines, make a reservation for a tasting, even learn about their rhino reserve and the things they're doing to help conserve rhinos and these endangered animals. They even have an employment tab for those budding rhino keepers that might be visiting. When you go see them, make sure to tell them you heard about Rhinory on this podcast. Well, the rhino has left the building, but there are more fun destinations that still await. I can't wait to bring you more info about another one in the next episode. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and possibly review the show wherever you get the podcast. Getting these ratings and reviews helps the show get seen by more people, and I truly appreciate the feedback. Subscribe to the podcast and follow my socials to be notified whenever the next episode is posted. Until next time, happy trails and bottoms up, y'all. Thanks for listening to Texas Under Vine. We strive to provide you with the best information about wine businesses all over Texas. Be sure to check out our website at texasundervine.com and follow us on our socials at Texas Under Vine to stay up on all the upcoming episodes. Please email us with any suggestions or feedback. Also, contact us if you're interested in donating, sponsoring, or advertising on the podcast, just to help us cover our expenses and bring even more great info to you in future episodes. Above all, travel safely, and most especially, drink responsibly. Don't forget to also check out the Texas Wine Lover website and their phone app. If you want to plan a trip to the wine destination I talked about in this episode, the site for Texas Wine Lover and their phone app that you can download will really help you organize a trip so you can go see them. You can check out all of the goodness that I got to experience while I was there. But as you're planning your trip, while you're on their website or their app, you can also find out things like accommodations, restaurants, and even some fun events and things that are going on at the wineries, and maybe even find one that you want to experience as part of your wine trip that you never even expected. So check them out. Again, it's txwinelover.com.